From our New York studios, it's America's Voice Live with Amanda Head and Jesse Kelly.
Welcome back to America's Voice Live. I'm Amanda Head with Jesse Kelly, and on the phone, because he's about 10 time zones away, so we're going to let him off the hook when it comes to video, but we've got Dan Peña. He's the $50 billion man and the founder of QLA, and he has a lot to talk about. But before we go into our interview with him, because it's just audio, we've got a video clip so you can see what he looks like and see what he's all about.
I said when Donald Trump before he got elected, he was going to transform the world vis-a-vis finance forevermore. I said it would be the greatest transformation of wealth since World War II. All true. And I said the ripple effect of the U.S., when the U.S. has a cold, sneezes, everybody else gets a cold. Isn't anybody keeping track of what's going on in the financial world? Are you all stupid because you got no money? Do you have any idea what corporate tax rates go by half? Do you have any idea when they do away with death tax? Do you have any conception of what that means? Well, the people that have money have sent the U.S. stock market up $6 trillion. Just because absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because you have never met anybody like me doesn't mean there's not a lot of us around. The world has changed, kids. Wake up. What are you going to tell your children and grandchildren when they grow up, during the greatest transformation of wealth, when they were giving money away free? Interest rates are at a 5,000-year low. 5,000. What were you doing, daddy, granddaddy, grandma? Oh, I sat there with my thumb up my ass listening to some Zen on his podcast.
Is that me?
Not you.
Oh.
Welcome to the show, Dan Peña. Thanks for joining us today.
Is that me?
That's you. We've got your picture up there.
Okay, no. I was saying that I don't normally listen to myself, but anyway, go ahead.
All right. So, you brought up something in that clip about, what are you going to tell your children and your grandchildren? And you think about these long-standing effects of things like socialism and policies that have, really enduring effects on whatever country it is they're imposed upon. And one of those things that Democrats love to talk about, it's a key talking point these days with Democrat platforms, is global warming. And I know you have a lot of opinions about that, so let it rip.
Okay. You're right, but let me just get back to socialism for a second. If socialism was so good and enduring, why do many of the people that are trying to get into the United States of America illegally and legally come from socialistic countries? But anyway, that aside, let's go to global warming. Since 1911, when Amundsen discovered the South Pole at Antarctica, there have been approximately 11 scientific groups to visit both poles, the South and the North. The only team that's still alive is my wife and myself. We went to the South Pole in 1911 for the 100-year anniversary of Amundsen discovering it. And we're there with a scientific group, which I'll get to in a second. And we were at the North Pole in 2015. So 2011 and 2015. When we were at the South Pole in 2011 for the 100th anniversary, we met with the scientific team that was there. There's about a $500 million, $600 million scientific facility that mostly the Americans have paid for, the American government. And we sat with 10 or 15 of the scientists, Einstein types, all PhDs, and they were telling us about climate change, never global warming. And they were going through these ice cores. And they, at that time, and this was 2011, they had drawn up about 5,000 ice cores from the South Pole. And most people don't realize the South Pole is on a mountaintop. So you can suffer from oxygen deprivation, which didn't affect my wife and I. And they got through about the 30 or 35th ice core. And they said, 50,000 years ago, it was this cold, and 75,000 ago, it was this cold, and 200,000 years, it was this cold. And then he says, but 55,000 years ago, it was almost 2 degrees warmer Celsius than it is today. So I stopped him and said, excuse me, Professor. I mean, are you telling me that, could you please repeat that? And he repeated it again. And I said, so what do you say about global warming? And all the scientific staff started laughing at the same time. And they said, there is no global warming. It's cyclical and it's climate change. And they said that it's going to, in another 15 or 20, 25,000 years, for those pundits that are still alive, of course, none of them are going to be alive, they'll be able to, pontificate about how it's climate change and not global warming. Now, one of the things that I'm famous for saying that went viral for 7 or 8 million hits is if global warming were for real, and they really thought the best estimate is it's going to be approximately 3 meters rise in water. Worst estimate's going to be 10 meters rise in water. That means roughly between 10 and 30 feet. Okay? If that were true, Florida, Central America, the west coast of California, Europe, the Netherlands, Central America would all be gone at 10 feet, let alone 30 feet. If that were the case, then all the condominiums that are being built and all those places I just told you, they're beachfront, there should be a clause, a disclaimer. If global warming is for real, you're buying a 15-story building that may be 3 stories underwater. Well, to date, as of this broadcast with you, I have yet to read one disclaimer by one law firm, by one investment group, by one country. The reason is because it's not true. And I've gone on record for saying that, and I have yet to anybody to refute me.
Dan, I have a question about the motivation of politicians then, because all this evidence is out there. I've heard things like this before where fact after fact after fact shows that it's just cyclical. It warms and then it's cool and then it cools. That's just what the planet does. Yet all these politicians globally push global warming, push climate change as being something that's man-made. Why? What is the motivation to push it as being something that's man-made when obviously it just makes your country poorer?
Politics is, unfortunately, isn't cyclical. And because politicians, in my judgment, this one man's opinion, are only interested in getting reelected. But I can give you one man's agenda, and that's Vice President Gore. And he came up essentially, not he alone, but his group, it was one of the groups that came up with global warming. He got a Nobel Peace Prize, if I'm not mistaken. And he has gotten filthy rich from it. So most of the global warming pundits have an agenda. They get rich. Now, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, the politicians aren't getting rich, but they have an agenda. They want to get jobs for their particular state. They want to get jobs for particular companies that back them in the global warming agenda. But I believe, in fact, this one man's opinion again, it's disingenuous as hell to do that. And but you and I aren't going to be around 15,000 years ago to argue with him, and that's the crime of this, is because people are gullible, people are naive, and I hate to say it, but Americans are probably the most naive, and they're the most gullible. I was in Florida at Mar-a-Lago for a dinner for heroes, hero ball for military veterans, and Mar-a-Lago, which is the president's home country club, would be gone. It would be under 15, 20 feet of water. I think that if the president even thought that was remotely true, he wouldn't have bought Mar-a-Lago 10 or 15 years ago.
Well, I don't think we want to lose Florida, but as long as I have advance notice to move inland, I'm here in California. I don't think anybody would mind losing California. But tell us a little bit about your
agree with that,
quantum
ma'am.
leap advantage. What?
I said I agree with you, ma'am.
Yeah. So just give me some notice so that I can move inland to Colorado or something.
Okay.
Or Texas or back home to Alabama. Okay. So founder of Quantum Leap Advantage. Tell us about that company and what it's all about.
Well, about 35 years ago, more or less, I because I was broke, dead broke is the operative part of that, and I came up with a methodology of creating a generational wealth. I had actually been practicing it before, and I took an option for something I did not own, which was legal at that time, public on the London Stock Exchange. So I turned $820 option into approximately $200 million in about 100 days. That was the basis of the QLA methodology. And at the time, I didn't know nobody had ever done that, because heretofore, when you buy something on the New York Stock Exchange, or you buy something on the London Stock Exchange or the Tokyo Exchange, you presume that the person that you're buying it from owns it, whether it's a share in a company or et cetera. But back in 1984, that wasn't the law. The law was that you didn't have to own it. So I discovered that, and I took an option for something, and I turned it into hundreds of millions of dollars overnight. Well, that was the basis for when I left the business world, that I thought I knew that I could teach kids that were broke like me. I'm an East Los Angeles barrio bad boy, got in a lot of trouble as a kid, come from the East Los Angeles barrio, how to make a lot of money and create generational wealth. And I used my own example of doing it from 1984. Now, subsequent to that, I turned it into a profession, being a high-performance wealth coach since 1993, and I've created over $50 billion with kids more or less just like you guys, with no money. And but it's not taught by Goldman Sachs. It's not taught by J.P. Morgan. It's not taught by Bank of America, because the principal tool for the model is commercial debt. And Goldman Sachs, J.P. Morgan, and Bank of America do not get fees paid for showing you how to go borrow money from Bank of America. They get fees paid for showing you how to go get equity, private equity, and have equity infusions in your business. And currently, 60% of all the fees generated on Wall Street, more or less, are fees generated from investment advisory services, not from showing you how to go to Bank of America. So it's a very simplistic method. It's actually a method that I copied from Andrew Carnegie, who is the dour little Scotsman, one of the wealthiest guys in the world, from 130 years ago. And I've just been using it for myself almost 50 years, and for 25 years for kids that I've coached. And it's become very popular, and I've more or less got the moniker now, the $50 billion man, because I take kids, and I'm not putting you down. Let's say you're above average intelligence, and your friend, the male friend, is below average intelligence. But I can show you, either one of you, how to create generational wealth if you're willing to follow the steps and utilize commercial debt. And that's what QLA is. It's Quantum Leap Advantage, and it's been very successful, to say the least. And I've created millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions. I have teenage multimillionaires flying around in jet planes. And one of my mentees created the largest deal in recorded history, the $500 billion city of the future, NEOM, in Saudi Arabia, as a joint venture between Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Egypt. So from teenage multimillionaires to $500 billion and everything in between, we've created utilizing QLA.
So where's there a website where we can find you for either QLA or $50 billion man? Where can we find you?
danpena.co.uk, @.co.uk, or if you just Google QLA, or if you just Google $50 billion man, or if you just Google Dan Peña. Although there are two other Dan Peñas. One Dan Peña is a college professor in Texas, and another Dan Peña owns an automotive shop in Arizona. But those aren't me. But there are two other Dan Peñas, and we were, it's quite remarkable that a kid from East LA, myself, son, and one of the things we didn't talk about the wall, which I'm very opinionated about, but my mother and grandmother came across the Rio Grande River illegally in 1924. They swam across. Actually, you don't swim across the Rio Grande River. That's a misnomer. You walk across the Rio Grande River. In 1924, as illegal aliens. And I'm for putting up the wall. So I'm a proponent of Trump's wall, even though I have relatives that came across illegally. And in full disclosure, I knew President Trump in a former life. I knew him in the late 80s and early 90s as a businessman. I haven't talked to him in 25 years, though. But I was one of the first endorsers of our president.
Dan, we got to get out of here, my friend. I cannot thank you enough for joining us on the program. Dan
Okay,
Peña,
well, I appreciate it very much.
Cannot recommend reading that guy enough. Check out his YouTube and everything else. Thank you for joining us, America's Voice News. We will be right back.
Thank you very much.